So this stranger interaction, it turns out that if you put up a sign in a street that says, we'll pay you $1 to talk to a complete stranger, people do it. And they don't even do it for the money. The money just says it's okay you to do this. You kind of want to do it, but it gives you an excuse. And so then so now we're at the sort of sociological layer. We can talk about the need for movement, the need for change, not just at the levels we've talked about already, but also that you might need to change the people that you hang out with. You might need to be able to, in order to create this new business that you've been dreaming of, you might need to meet somebody new that can add something to your life that hasn't happened before. And also the sociological layer, let's talk a little bit about mimetic desire. Like, I find Bitcoin valuable. I've spoken to hundreds, if not more than 1,000 people about Bitcoin this last year. From about February onwards, I got really immersed in it. It starts with intentions. They want to know why you're telling them about Bitcoin. Because if they're going to change everything, if they're going to suddenly, oh no, I have to think about my money now. I thought I could rely on that. They're going to want to know why, and they're going to want to know what's in it for you. If I agree with you that this should be valuable as well, if I align my interests with yours, what do you get out of it? And if you get something out of it, am I okay with that? And what do I get out of it? And what does everybody else get out of it? And you can't even, it's difficult, this issue of manipulation. And I mean like psychological manipulation. It's very difficult, I think, when people talk about Bitcoin to make it sound like this is good for everybody. And I think that has something to do with the deflationary economics that are built into it. A lot of people say, well, if it's deflationary, isn't everything going to get bunked up? And they don't understand that, surely we need more money. What they don't understand is the concept of infinity. They don't understand what the difference between infinity and eternity. Eternity is that which has no direction. It just is. It's as much inside as it is outside. It doesn't know boundaries. It doesn't have limits. But infinity can last forever, but it can also have a direction. So yes, you can take an ounce of silver and you can keep dividing it up into infinitely small pieces, so long as you can identify and discern every piece of silver that you're taking off. That's fine. And as long as each one is equal and fungible, that means they can be exchanged for the same amount. A Bitcoin is worth a Bitcoin always. It's okay. But you're still left with the finite ounce that you started. And that's the important takeaway, is that you get an infinity and you get value creation within the currency supply that's still tied to a finite whole. When you start printing more money, when you break that promise, the fixed issuance promise that you made at the door when people came in and you said there were only going to be 1 million coins or whatever your total supply is going to be, what you're doing is you're taking all the work that people did in the markets, all of the price discovery, all of the price comparison websites that you went to. That's work. It's minimal work, but it's work nonetheless. You are providing value. And then the central bank says, well, let's produce another silver coin. And now this is where the theft comes in. This is where the fraud is. Because now what you're doing is you're taking all the work that the people did on the ground out there in the world, price discovery, and then you're choosing to give this new ounce to who exactly? To your friends, presumably, right? You're going to give it to the banksters. You're going to give it to your friends in government. You're going to give it to, it's nepotism. You're going to give it to the people that are closest to you. And as a result, they're going to, for a short time, enjoy some of the benefits of this new ounce of silver, because for a while, it will still have the properties of the value that was generated in the first ounce. But over time, people start to realize, actually, this money is a little bit more abundant than I thought it was. And anyway, it's not the money I want. It's what it buys me. Money doesn't want to get too valuable, because then you want it too much. It can't lose its value too quickly either, because, then people start misallocating their money. They start putting it into things they don't really need, just in order to preserve the capital. And so this fraud is very subtle. We talked about the Republic, didn't we? In the Republic, I think Plato brings up this commonality between rhetoric and relativism. What I find when I go out and I try to talk to people about Bitcoin, I usually start it from the issues that affect them the most. So if I'm talking to a bar or something, I'll bring up notion of fees on the Visa network and the chargebacks and all of that kind of thing. And what you tend to find is that they'll say, oh, well, it's all, what you believe and what I believe, it's all relative, isn't it? So you could just use clever language. This is the rhetorician. You could use just clever language and you could just blindside me. So yes, I hear what you're saying and that sort of makes sense to me in a logical way. I don't know whether you're too clever. I don't know whether there's something that you have that I don't have. So the way I find is best, just bringing this back now to where this theme started with mimetic desire, trying to get other people to want something because you believe that it's good. I think what you have to do is be very patient. If it's obvious that this person doesn't, it just doesn't have the time right now, they've got a lot going on in their lives, I think the appropriate thing for you to say, okay, I really thank you for giving me your time. If you've got any questions, here's my email address, and just, write your email address on or something. But if you find that they're interested in this, what I would do is I would start with Bitcoin. And if they are interested in it, you can then move into, the wider ecosystem, the altcoins. You can talk about all the businesses that are growing out of this, the business opportunities that are emerging. And then I think you make your way in. So yeah, it starts with their problem first. And then it's about being patient, make sure you don't make them feel silly. Sometimes people don't like it when, somebody knows something that they don't because they perhaps like to feel like they're very clever. Be sensitive to that, particularly if you're going to get into the technical stuff. I wouldn't talk about mining as a rule, certainly not on your first go. That's very sort of pro. That's quite high end. You want to leave that until a little bit later. And so then we've gone from the physics to sociology. And this whole thing hangs together with those wonderful adjectives we call numbers, those things that are universal, that understood the world over, no matter what culture you're from, no matter what language you speak, everybody understands the concept of 1, 2. Everybody knows how to describe the quantities in their world, the sequences in their world. And that's what, for me, makes this really powerful.
Well, that's the essence of a design pattern, really. Money is a language and value is a symbolic and abstract thing that we assign to things using the language of money. It's a shared cultural system. It doesn't have existence outside of human culture. Mm-hmm. And money isn't something that you see outside of human culture because it is human culture. And it doesn't have value outside of human culture because, again, it's just an artifact of human symbology. But within that system, we create the stories that allow us to understand money and to use that conversation, to use the language of money, essentially to create more efficient ways of interacting with each other. If we didn't speak the same language, we can still communicate through pantomime and mimetics and hand gestures based on our shared values. I can explain food to any human in the world by making a few hand gestures because we have the same shared cultural understanding of food, which is a biological understanding. And explaining money is harder, but at the same time, it is a shared language because it allows us to interact with people in a much more efficient way than trying to transact with physical things that are not abstract. And so it's hard to explain money. It's hard to think about money. But in the end, it's something we do all the time. In some ways, money is one of the oldest inventions of humanity. Its history goes back hundreds of thousands of years. It's as basic as fire and language, and probably started appearing soon after fire and language. Basic tool making leads to the creation of forms of intrinsic value and then symbols that represent that. So, this is a very ancient conversation. And part of the difficulty here is that people in the present are not aware of the fact that this is a conversation that's been happening for hundreds of thousands of years, and that a lot of the things we take for granted are more a reflection of the medium we use to speak the language, quirks of the language, colloquialisms. We use colloquialisms of paper money. We use speech patterns and habits and little expressions that really speak to our common understanding of paper money and increasingly of credit cards. And they color our understanding of money because we have these little quirks of language. And that's why it's important to have this discussion. I grew up bilingual. And one of the things that I realized very early on is that having two languages to draw from very quickly gives you the ability to start comparing. And comparative linguistics opens a whole window of understanding, because suddenly you realize the difference between things that are intrinsic to the language and things that are part of what you're trying to express with the language, and how different languages handle these little quirks. Well, now everyone is offered the opportunity to be fluent in multiple currencies, and multiple currencies not based on the same model, but multiple currencies that derive from completely different models. Just like speaking Mandarin and English gives you one of the deepest levels of comparative linguistics, because you have some of the fundamental constructs in the language completely conceived differently. Cryptocurrencies and fiat give us a very, very deep comparative numismatics. It gives us the ability to talk about money in a new and interesting way, because for the first time we can compare two radically different concepts of currency. And that doesn't just teach us about cryptocurrencies. I think more importantly, it's teaching people about currency in general and helping them understand the money they already have,
right. And so now,
better than they did before.
Okay.
That's the new conversation and the narrative we're having.
Like, well, the question of, okay, now what? Like you say, to continue on from where you're saying, that this is about value created around lines of trust and culture, and not around national borders anymore. And I think what the point is justice. And I think that this technology can help them get that, because you've got a monetary system where the regulation is baked in by design. Ethics are baked into the code. You don't have to have a police officer to go around enforcing the double spends. Everyone's a police officer, because everybody is, downloading the wallet software. Every wallet software is a master node. It will trace every transaction, and it will verify the validity of the blockchain, of the public ledger. All of the claims, all of the economic claims that have been made on the network will be verified independently by each node.
Right, exactly. So it's ironic because people say Bitcoin is unregulated, whereas in fact Bitcoin is regulated. It's regulated by convention. It's regulated by algorithm. It's regulated by a shared understanding of the protocol. And that means it's regulated by every one of us. Where it takes away counterparty risk mandated from the outside, it gives us the opportunity to add the counterparties of our choice with things like multisig. It challenges our very notions of where the source of authority is and how to conduct ourselves in a system where deterministic resolution of transactions is possible based on this shared consensus, where you not only know what's happening on the Bitcoin network through the examination of the blockchain. Each individual client can independently verify each transaction without external recourse, simply by looking at the proof of work that is embedded in the blockchain. But not only do you know what is happening on the Bitcoin network, you also know that everybody else knows what is happening on the Bitcoin network. And you also know that everybody else knows that everybody else knows what is happening on the network. So it's not just that you're applying the convention to arrive at a conclusion or to derive some knowledge. you know that everyone else is applying the same convention, and therefore you can predict that they will arrive at the same conclusion. And finally, you know that everybody understands that this convention is broadly shared, and therefore everyone can predict that the entire network will arrive at the same conclusion through this process of consensus. And that's kind of a very beautiful thing. It's a very elegant thing because it is the ultimate kind of extension of knowledge. It's not something I know. It's something I know that you know it, and you know that I know that you know it. And it sounds like a rabbit hole, but in fact, it's a very important principle of knowledge, which is that shared understanding, that shared consensus, which allows us to make deterministic predictions about what will happen on the blockchain. If I look at a transaction, I can tell you whether that transaction will be verified because I know that everyone will use the same approach to decide that question. And that is extremely powerful because it means that you no longer have to rely on trust outside of your own understanding of the system. And it will be a very powerful form of justice because that shared understanding cannot easily be violated or confused or cheated by anyone acting against the common consensus. When everyone is marching to the same beat, that 10-minute pulse of block confirmation through increased proof of work, it's very easy to notice the one actor that's trying to march against the beat. It's very difficult to march against that beat. So yeah, this is a new narrative, and it's one that will take some time to understand. The ones who are most steeped in the old narrative are the ones who are going to have the greatest difficulty adapting to this. And this is the same for bankers as it's been for scientists and any other profession. You tend to use the existing paradigm
if you're
to
not,
form your worldview.
Well, if you're not willing to give up the need to be right,
it's very difficult. No, I wouldn't either. I think there's an interesting realization. The interesting realization is that bankers themselves as individuals are, for the most part, nice people. And for the most part, they're doing a good job and they're living in a system where they feel that they're getting properly rewarded for delivering the centralized trust that people need. And in that respect, they're doing good. It is only as a system, as a whole, where the systemic compromise at every level and the opportunities for corruption mean that as a whole, the system doesn't do good. But most individuals in the system are really just, moving with the flow. But the nice news is that with this new system, because it's completely external to the traditional banking system, we don't need their permission. And just like many decentralization movements in the past, the people in the center are least likely to give you permission to decentralize them out of a job. But as in many cases, they have no control over it. The most disruptive movements are the ones that remove control over the future of the disruption from the people who are most likely to be disrupted. And Bitcoin doesn't need anybody's permission. Cryptocurrencies as a design pattern can be adopted on an individual by individual basis until the reality of it is simply momentous and mountainous and insurmountable.
Yeah, that's bang on. Everything you said is absolutely on the button. I would say that actually that the blockchain tells two stories. It tells a story to us in the present about the transfer of value, but it also tells a story to the future. You've got to think about this as a permanent ledger, a permanent record, and the history is going to look back at the things that you did, and it's going to be very, very difficult to separate your identity from your actions on the blockchain over time. You can do it very weakly, like you've spoken about before, weak pseudonymity. Yes, you do get some anonymity. And of course, with anonymity comes authenticity. You're able to explore new ways of being, new sides to yourself that perhaps the society you've embedded in didn't let you. But over time, that anonymity is going to look very, very temporary. And I think we all need to think about the way, what history are we leaving behind? What are we going to leave behind for the people that come later?
Yeah, there's the adage is that once something is on the internet, it's on the internet forever. just got amplified massively with the blockchain.
It mattered to you. These are economic claims that you're making. If you don't have money, you don't have a voice, and this is the thing. And so whatever you're doing with your money is going to speak even more about the kind of person that you are.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation about the nature of money, the nature of reality, philosophy as it applies to Bitcoin, intrinsic value, the future of justice and decentralized systems. As always, a great pleasure.
It's been an absolute privilege.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
CryptoKit is the world's first Chrome browser Bitcoin wallet. It's the easiest, fastest Bitcoin wallet payment system. With a simple one-click install, it takes just seconds to get your wallet set up. And because CryptoKit finds the address and payment for you, there's no more fussing around or tab switching. CryptoKit is more than just a wallet. It comes with a preloaded PGP encrypted social network, news feeds from Reddit and Google, and up-to-date charts from exchanges. Finally, CryptoKit Directory allows you to make two-click payments with any of the BitPay merchants. Once you install CryptoKit, you won't need anything else. For more information or to download CryptoKit, visit CryptoKit.com.